share my screen.
Not yet, not yet. Wait a bit.
Oh, yeah.
Not yet? Okay, no problem.
I'll wait for your green light.
Okay.
Oh, now we're live, Geraldo. You can start.
Hello and welcome everyone to our January Business Intelligence Analytics Data Jam stream. My name is Eralda Nazarko, and I'm very excited to be the host of TripleTen January Business BIA Data Jam. I'm glad to see all of you tonight, that you could join, and we are ready, and we are hosting the January Data Jam streaming at TripleTen. So for those of you who are new to this space, I would like to introduce a little bit what is a code jam. It's a friendly competition that occurs for our students during their normal coursework. They are super short competitions where a group of our students get together and jam out a bunch of work to meet the prompt. This one is a data jam, all about analysis and working with the data. And we have a very interesting topic tonight. For this event, we will unite our students from Business Intelligence Analytics program. And this data jam consists of two parts, working on a project and the presentation, which is tonight. Last week, our participants were divided in teams and challenged to collaboratively fact-check the claim that the American middle class is disappearing using real US economic data. So is that true? This is something that hopefully we'll get an answer from our presentations tonight. We have provided our participants with some data set to work on it, but in order to fact check the claim and complete the project, our participants also had to use real economic data. Today, they are going to show us their insights and analysis, and we are excited, very excited actually, to see the result. This is something that it's relevant to all of us. And the teams had only 6 days to complete their projects. Today, the teams are going to show their project to all of you out there attending and joining us in live stream. Then our judges will review them next week. So the judges will be evaluating both the data analysis work and the presentation tonight. We encourage you to support our brave participants in the comments, so your engagement is important for us. And now it's time to roll the dice and have some fun. We are going to see what they have accomplished in 6 days, and we are wishing to both teams that we have tonight good luck and looking forward to see their analysis and what is their conclusion about US middle class. Now, as I mentioned, we have 2 teams that are presenting live tonight. So the first team that will start is Strategic Analytics Group. We have 2 team members, Ahmed Abumira and Gertrude Chidayaski. I hope I pronounced your name correctly. I apologize.
That's correct.
If I did any mistakes. So the floor is all yours. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Geralda. Gertrude, can you share the presentation? Thank you so much. Okay. I'm Ahmed. I'm a business and market intelligence analyst with experience in 2 different industries, telecommunication and home appliances industry. And today we are exploring a question that comes up a lot in public discourse. Is the American middle class disappearing? And actually, rather than relying on headlines and opinions, we've approached this question from macroeconomic data-driven perspective, using the data that covered the period for the last 40 years from 1984 to 2024. Together, Gertrude and I analyzed multiple indicators to understand not just income levels, but purchasing power, wages, inflation, and inequality, which together shape the real lived experience of the middle class. But before we move to the data, I want to get a short cut to the answer of our conclusion, which is no, the middle class is not disappearing. Actually, I wanted to be upfront with our conclusion so you know where the analysis is heading. Based on the data, the American middle class has not disappeared, but it's under increasing economic pressure. So before we look at the data, we first need to make sure what we mean by middle class. So when people talk about the middle class, definitions vary a lot. So for this study, we deliberately focus on the median household. And the median household means the typical household. So that's why we use the real median income. And also, instead of nominal dollars, we focused on the purchasing power, because what matters here, what can household actually afford? So this definition keeps the analysis grounded into a realistic economic foundation. So with that definition in mind, the first major force affecting the household is the CPI, or the living cost. So now we're going to talk about the consumer price index. So this chart shows the consumer price index over time, which captures the change in the living cost. So what stands out immediately here is how persistent and steady the rise in prices has been over the 4 decades, with a noticeable increase by 2024. In simple terms, we can say like the dollar today buys far less than it did in the mid of 1980s. That's why inflation adjustment is so essential. It's very important. Without it, economic growth could be misleading. And now that we understand the cost environment, let's look at the wages, the primary source of income for household, the middle class household. So this chart shows the real average hourly wages indexed to 1984. So what we mean by indexed here, we select the 1984 as the base year in order to be easier for us to compare to this year. So for example, if we need to compare 2024 to 1984, or what we need to just divide the value of 2024 to the value of 1984. So it gives you the percentages, how far we are from 1984. So despite major economic growth, real wages for typical workers increase only gradually. As you can see on the graph here, there are long periods where wages are flat and even more declines in earlier years. And by 2024, real wages are higher than in 1984. But the increase is modest, especially when you compare it to the high rise in living cost. But wages are one part of the story. But households also combine incomes. So let's have a look at the household income level. And this chart shows the real median household income, again indexed to 1984. So as you can see here, over the long run, the trend is upward, meaning the typical household is better off today than in the mid of 1980s. However, what's more important here, how this change happened. So this change, it was uneven, with repeated periods of stagnation and even decline, especially after the major economic crisis that took place in early 2000s and 2008. So at this point, we see rising costs, slow wage growth, and uneven income gains. The natural question is, what this all together mean? So when we put these trends together, a clear pattern emerges here. So economic progress did occur, yes, but it was slow, uneven, and constantly pressured by rising living costs. So prices rose in a way that reduced what people could afford, wage couldn't keep up consistently, and while household income improved overall, purchasing power remained under strain. So far, we focus on levels, prices, wages, and household income. But there's another crucial KPI or indicator we haven't explored yet, how those gains were distributed. So at this point, I will hand it over to Gertrude. She will walk us through the inequality side of the story and bring everything together.
Thank you, Ahmed, for
No.
taking through the beginning of the presentation. And my name is Gertrude Chidiasiku. I am a virtual operations manager with a specialty in business data analysis. And I will be taking you through the data moving forward to further support our hypothesis and conclusion that Ahmed led us through, that the middle class is subsequently not disappearing. It is actually still steadily available and steadily viewed in the data. However, there are some challenges that they're facing. So we then examined the income inequality with the GNI index that you see here. We made sure to base everything for the 1984 date. So 1984 equals 0. So any year after that, since that was a very high earning year, we base our data off of base point. And then the long-term trend shows that there's a steady increase in inequality from the mid-1980s to today. So to 2024 is the end date that the data had. Although there are small temporary dips, the overall direction is upward. And this means that while economic growth occurred, the distribution of that growth became unequally, increasingly uneven, and economic gains were more concentrated, altering how prosperity is shared across households. So the next graph shows that the purchasing power rose faster than the inequality. So you can see here the GNI index compared with the real median income index is further showing the disparity between what people are earning and then their real life experience with their buying power. When they're looking for houses, when they're going to the grocery store, like we saw in that image, people are thinking in this time of their life, I'm earning 80 to 100K plus. How come I'm not feeling it in my buying power? Why do I still feel like I'm struggling to make ends meet? And this data further supports what we're hearing from our friends, our colleagues, and even some of us on this line today is we got that pay raise, but why does it feel like it's showing in my lifestyle? And while the median household purchasing power increased, inequality also rose, meaning that gains were not evenly shared across households, like I mentioned. So why is the middle class experiencing economic pressure? Slow wage growth is the number one reason. Number two, rising costs of living is another reason. And then number three is increased inequality. A lot of times in the metropolitan area, or even when people are moving to other neighborhoods where they have now gotten their new job, that they're earning more, there is a proven increased inequality in those neighborhoods in terms of their buying power. Um, Fragile household gains as well. And so the middle class pressure stems from the interaction of slow wage growth, rising costs, unequal income distribution, creating a challenging economic environment. So once again, is the middle class disappearing? The American middle class has not disappeared, but decades of rising costs, modest wage growth, and increasing inequality have left it economically squeezed. So purchasing power has increased, but unevenly. Income distribution became more unequal. Number three, economic security became more fragile. And I wanted to just mention on the data here is that you can see that there was a dip in 2020 when the pandemic happened, which affected so many people's lives. And a lot of people were furloughed. A lot of people went from two income households to maybe one or had to transition. So that was an explanation of that. And then we also wanted to indicate that we didn't get to discuss all of the things that we brainstormed in our time together, but we would like to explore the regional cost of living differences in the United States. The data didn't support that, so we chose to not include that point in our presentation today. But since the middle class purchasing power varies significantly between high cost cities like New York and LA and lower cost regions like Texas, we would like to explore that moving forward as a team. And conclusion, over the past 40 years, economic growth in the United States has not translated proportionately into middle class stability. While the middle class remains, rising inequality and modest wage growth have weakened most position. And how that affects business decisions is that whether people are looking for ads that they want to create for their businesses to make sure that it's relevant to the population that they're reaching, this data would be so important so that people see that the companies understand that although they're making money, their buying power is not as strong. So ads that understand their demographic and their buying capacity would be very important. So we believe that this would be helpful for them. So we use the census and Fred as data sources, and it was we had a great time putting together this presentation, Ahmed and I, and we came from different sides of the spectrum. He thought that the middle class was depreciating. I thought that it was there. And we came to the conclusion with our data and hard work and our great team collaboration to find that the data shows that it is still remains today in the United States. So thank you so much for your time and your attention. And we open up the floor for any questions that you may have.
Thank you, Gertrude. Thank you, Ahmed. A great presentation overall. I have a question. So how did you analyze the data? What were the models that you used for your analysis? Can you explain a little bit about the technology?
Yes, of course. Actually, we used mainly Google Sheets. And we did we did some basic formulas and functions like index, VLOOKUPs, average if. That's some basic functions.
Okay.
Yeah.
And how was the experience? Was it enough time? It was just only you two working on this project?
To be honest with you, if it was a full-time task, I mean, it was a full-time job, that would be enough time. But since it's a part-time task, so we were short in time a little bit.
Yes.
Yeah.
I would say that it was sufficient. Ahmed was very impressed every time we met together. He's like, "Wait, you did this in a fast turnaround time?"
She surprised me every time. Yes,
we have a crunch. We have a crunch time. We have to get this by Wednesday. So I would say with the information provided, and thank you, TripleTen University Bootcamp for providing the links. So that shortened our time because we didn't have to independently look for sources. But overall, I believe that we had enough time, and I'm really grateful for the responsiveness of my teammate, so that we were able to schedule times that we were available.
So just to reiterate to the first question that I asked, how many records, how much data did you guys work with?
Actually, four data sets, I think. Is that what you mean by your question, right?
Yes. Yeah. 4 data sets, and each data set approximately.
How long we work on the data sets?
No, each data set, how many records usually?
How many records? Like 45 rows.
Okay.
With columns, I think 12 or 13 columns. So 45 times 12.
Okay.
Like,
so
like 500, 600 records, I think.
Okay, the size of your data set. Okay. Yeah. And so yeah, thank you. Thank you for your work. And just out of curiosity, personal curiosity in terms of how the inflation and the cost and the increase in terms of wage is going proportionally. Because you mentioned that that was the biggest disadvantage for middle class at this point.
Yes.
So if we'll take as an example, yes, please.
Yeah, the main problem or the main point here, Erlada, is that the cost rises up at a higher rate than the wage.
Okay.
So for example, this is the main point. Yeah. So of course, the wages are rising, the total household income increasing. However, it doesn't match up with the increase in the prices. Okay. So as if we get back to the main point again, or the origin point again. Yeah. So there is an increase in salaries, but I can't feel this increase anymore.
Okay. Okay. Thank you. Thank you, team for one. Great job.
Yeah. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for your questions and your time. We appreciate it.
It's our pleasure to have you guys tonight. So now it's time to move on to the next team, East Sider duo. We have Sergey Zavalov and Thais Velas. They are presenting also live tonight, and looking forward at the end of the presentation for some questions. Thank you, guys. The floor is yours.
Thank you. Share my screen here real quick. All right.
Perfect. So, hi everyone. Welcome to our presentation. We are Team Eastsider Duo. My team consists of myself and my teammate Serge. In this project, we were asked whether the American middle class is disappearing. And based on our findings, we've concluded the middle class isn't so much disappearing, but shifting and adapting. Real cost pressures make it feel like a decline, but perception does not necessarily equal disappearance. Before we get started, I want to be clear about some assumptions we're using, because the middle class can mean different things depending on how you measure it. First, we use standard middle income range as a reference point, roughly 52,000 to 155,000 per household, and we adjust our thinking by household and location. Second, we treat real median household income as our best middle class indicator because it reflects the typical household and not the wealthy. Third, we use real disposable income and real consumption to reflect life today, since they capture after-tax buying power and what people actually spend. Fourth, we include net worth because stability is not just what the household owns, about what household own, not just what they earn each year. And let's see here. And finally, we acknowledge modern reality. A middle-class lifestyle often needs two paychecks, so comparing today to one earner era can be misleading. With that framework, we can separate real cost stress from true collapse and test whether the middle class is disappearing or shifting.
Yeah, thanks, Di. So we begin with the core of our project, the median income versus the inequality chart. The blue line at the top tracks the real median household income from 1984 through 2023. Over that span, it rises from around $60,000 to over $80,000, which is a strong evidence that the typical household is not in a long-term collapse. However, looking at the orange line, that's the inequality line, rising from 37 to nearly 42 over the same period, it explains the confusion, because typical households can earn more while the top pulls away even faster, making the middle feel like it's shrinking. This supports our conclusion that the middle class is shifting, not disappearing. The feeling of decline isn't coming from the drop in total income. It's coming from people comparing their steady gains to a much faster growing top tier. But we must acknowledge the volatility. You can see the sharp dip during the 2008 crisis and the 2020 pandemic. Those shocks, combined with the rising cost of essentials like housing and healthcare, are a big reason people feel like the middle class is collapsing, even when the long-term trends show resilience.
So for a long time, the middle class standard was actually built around one paycheck. These two lines show why that story doesn't match today. Women's labor force participation climbed for decades and then stabilized, meaning women became the steady part of the workforce and the gap with men narrowed. At the same time, men's participation trends down over the long run, and it takes a bigger hits during recessions with only partial rebound. This matters because it changes how stable households remain. More families now rely on two earners, not one, to reach a middle-class lifestyle. So when people say the middle class is disappearing, part of what they're reacting to is that the old model doesn't work the same way anymore. This strengthens our case that middle class is shifting and adapting. When employment is strong, two-income households can stay steady even when affordability feels tighter. One important caveat is that these lines don't measure pay or prices. They measure participation, which is why we've connected this to income and wealth in the next slides. After seeing how work has shifted, the next question is whether work is still translating into a stable middle-class income. Up top is the employment population ratio, basically the share of Americans who are working. It swings with the economy. During the pandemic, it hit 51.3% in April 2020, and then rebuilt over time about 59.7% by December 2025. On the bottom chart is real median household income, which tracks what a typical household earns after inflation. It dips around big shocks, but recent levels are still strong, reaching about $83,730 in 2014. Put together, this supports our main point. The middle class isn't disappearing. When the job market recovers, the typical household income tends to recover too. One caveat is that these charts show jobs and median income, but not what people actually afford after taxes. So next we look at after-tax income and real spending.
That's right. And to really test the middle class, if the middle class is disappearing, we have to look at what's left after the Uncle Sam takes his cut, right? So the top chart, that's the real disposable personal income per capita. It tracks the after-tax buying power, and we can see the long-term trend are upward. The bottom chart is the real personal consumption expenditure per capita is also trending up, meaning the households are still able to spend more money over time, even after inflation. If the middle class were truly vanishing, we would see these lines plateau or collapse. You'll notice some extreme volatility around 2020. That's the massive spike representing pandemic stimulus, and the subsequent dip is just the data returning to its long-term trend. While that transition feels like a loss in many families, the structural reality is that trajectory remains upward. Our takeaway is that the disappearing middle class is often misunderstood. Essentials feel more expensive, but overall buying power and consumption remain strong. The middle class isn't gone, it's just under more pressure. And we've talked about income, but wealth is where this really gets interesting. The top chart tracks the percentage share of all US equities held by the affluent 90th to 99th percentile. And this is the big thing you'll notice is how steady it is. For decades, this has been roughly about a third of the market. Now contrast that with the bottom chart. That's the total dollar value equities held by the 50th to 90th percentile, basically the middle and upper middle class. Even if this share hasn't overtaken the affluent group at the top, their actual wealth has grown a lot, from under $1 trillion in the 90s to over $6 trillion today. And here's the big key moment. Recently, the 90th to 99th percentile dipped slightly from 37.7 to 37.2%, while the 50th to 90th grew by about $1 trillion in that same time period. So yes, the costs are real and life feels a bit tighter, but this supports our point. The middle class isn't disappearing, it's building assets and expanding its stake. This slide here, where everything comes together. We've shown the middle class is earning more and owning more, but the disappearing narrative still sticks, and this is why. It's a collision of rising wealth and the top 10% rising. It's a collision of the rising wealth at the top 10% and the rising cost pressures. So if the middle class were truly collapsing in a structural way, this line would flatten or fall or fall. Instead, it climbs sharply, which tells us households on the bottom half have built a bigger cushion of assets than they used to. And with inflation stabilizing and all-time record equity on hand, we aren't seeing a collapse. We're seeing a reloading. The growth in the bottom 50 provides a foundation that backs up our point that it's widening. As the top of the lower class gains their wealth, there's a primary transition from the bottom to the middle. So the middle class isn't vanishing. It's aggressively expanding and it's absorbing a new wave of upward mobility households. This data doesn't show an end. It shows a new beginning.
All right, so let's answer the question we started with. Is the American class disappearing? Our verdict is no. Across our slides, we saw resilience more than collapse. The labor market gets hit during downturns and the pandemic, but it rebounds. Real median household income trends upward over time, and when we look at after-tax buying power and real consumption, those rise too. That's a strong sign the typical household isn't falling off a cliff. Then we look at wealth. Even though equities are still concentrated near the top, the middle and upper middle have built a lot more market wealth over time. And the bottom 50% has grown net worth, which suggests a pipeline of households moving up into the lower end of the middle class. So why does it feel like it's disappearing? Essentials got more expensive, and that squeeze is definitely real. But perception does not equal disappearance.
Yeah, so thank you for listening, everyone, joining. We had a great time working together on this project, exploring the middle class story, and now it's we're open for your questions, comments. Floor is yours.
Thank you, East Sider Duo. Thank you for your great presentations.
Of course.
So
Yeah.
I have a question. What was the most challenging thing that you had to work on these 6 days for this project, to complete this project?
I think for sure, I would say for myself is getting the story together. Just getting, I think a good story is a big part of being able to show an analysis of something, right? Like it's important that people are able to kind of follow through and see exactly from end to beginning and kind of constantly repeat that main point, right? And our main point is that the middle class isn't necessarily disappearing, but it's really just remaining strong, right? But all those things are real, like inflation, healthcare, and education costs, and all these things. But creating that storyline, we worked really, really well together on that end. We knew exactly what we wanted to say in each, throughout our story so that people can kind of follow along. And it feels like more of a conversation and like a flow of things rather than like, little details in every slide. So we really like creating that story aspect of it.
Yeah, I found the difficult challenge was trying to take the opposite point from the first team, and it still failed. I was really hoping you guys would talk about the shrinking and contracting middle class because that seemed like the easier thing to do. But you guys backed up our point anyway, so it's okay. Thank you.
And the other question that I have is based on the data that you use for your analysis. In the future, can you do more analysis on the same data? And
Definitely.
what, if you'd have more time, what is something that you prefer to look
Definitely.
into it?
I can take this one. On our GitHub, I made sure to put some future direction that we can take the data with. Of course, there's always so much nuance. So there's so much going on that we can further. And a few of those, I got 4 of those. And one of them was regional and demographic breakdown. So basically slicing results by region, by household size, because of course, people get paid differently. I'm in a household of 2. It's not the same as a household of 4 with children. So, and age group. And really, another one was essentials versus non-essentials, like what kind of things, kind of just breaking everything into categories, right? Like housing, healthcare, education, and show where the squeeze is like really coming from. And the third one we put here was wealth composition. So separate net worth into home equity versus stocks versus cash and debt, because debt is also one of those that we can test how the middle class may be doing. And then the other thing was doing like a cohort and life stage analysis, just to compare outcomes for younger versus older households, like millennials and Gen Z. So that would be kind of like a really cool thing to do, just to really solidify if what we're saying is true and what if those classes are actually struggling or not. So those are a little bit of a thing just to see how things go with that. I did put that on our GitHub too, so just future directions.
I could agree with that. And if we had a little more time, I would have loved to have loaded the data that I had from Fred's into Tableau. I posted just, the data that was provided to us in Tableau. I loaded that in, but didn't really have enough time to model much, play around with all the data that we've had and gathered. So it would have been nice to have a little bit more time to do that.
I like our presentation because even with time constraints, you're still able to still analyze data, right? And that says a lot. And I think our approach was let's put it up one at the top and one at the bottom, and then let's look at that, right? And see how that looks because Fred was such a great resource to really just analyze the data and see what it's telling us, but still kind of paint a picture while storytelling at the same time.
Really excellent point, guys, also for future reference or for future analysis on this particular data. Thank you. Thank you so much to both our teams, Strategic Analytics Group, which was the first team that presented, Ahmed and Gertrude. Thank you.
Thank you, Orlando.
Thank you.
Thank you to East Sider Duo, Sergey and Thais. Thank you for a great presentation. Great job, both of your teams. And on that And this is all we had for tonight. This was the TripleTen. This was from TripleTen, the January BIA Data Jam presentation. Thank you so much for watching all. And if you are a TripleTen student and you are interested in participation, check out your career channels in the hub, where you can find more information about the upcoming events. Also, special thank you goes to the organizers of this event. Thank you, Arina, Omar, Liana, Natasha, Olivia, Dennis, Anastasia. Thank you for your hard work and supporting our students during these competitions. Thank you again to all participants for presenting your work today. We are continually impressed for what you build, and events like this wouldn't be possible without such enthusiastic and brave students. One more time, my name is Eralda Nazarko, and I would like to thank you for participating. Thank you for watching us, and have a good night, all of you, and see you in the next coming event.
Thank
Thank
you.
you, Aralda.
Thank you.
Great evening.
Thank you.
Okay.
Bye-bye. Good night.
Oh,
Take care. God bless.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You did great, everyone.
you too.
Great job.
But we're winning this one.